That should be loud enough, but let me try that again. Much better. I don't trust it unless my ears are ringing. Hey folks, my name is Dennis, and I had a podcast. It was a fun thing to do, and I made a few episodes, and it was getting a little hard to research, and audio editing is somehow more time-consuming for me than video editing. So I've put it on a little bit of a hiatus. The podcast was called Dogma, a podcast about cults, and I would research cults and tell the audiences about them. I am going to be transitioning a few of those episodes over to here, but I'm redoing them in video format. And 'tis the season, so I thought that the first one that I'd transition over would probably be one of my favorite episodes, the Cult of Santa Muerte. Circa 1300 CE, in pre-invasion Mexico, religion was very fluid. Different tribes such as the Mexica, also known as the Aztec, the Maya, the Zapotec, and others had specific patron gods, but the pantheon was more or less the same, and many religious practices such as human sacrifice and veneration of the dead spanned different tribes. Many of these gods came from the ancient Olmec, who were thought to be gods themselves by the contemporary Mesoamericans. For the purposes of this show, I'm going to be using the Nahuatl names for these deities, as they're the most common. So my apologies to the ancestors for my pronunciations. One such deity is the goddess Mictecacihuatl, wife of the god of the dead, Mictantecuhtli. They were placed in the underworld by Quetzalcoatl after he created the world. Mictecacihuatl was believed to have been born and sacrificed as an infant, granting her the status of Lady of the Dead. She was typically represented with a flayed body, her muscles exposed, and her mouth opened to swallow the stars. Mictecacihuatl's worship, as well as the worship of the rest of her cohorts, abruptly declined once Hernán Cortés invaded and Catholicism spread throughout the region. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about Hernán Cortés and La Chingada in another video very soon. So, the spread of the word did change the religious landscape. It is believed that Mictecacihuatl's worship continued throughout the centuries, however, almost in secret, and has now become more present today as the cult worship and veneration of Santa Muerte. Santa Muerte goes by a couple of different names, and I'm probably going to switch between them throughout this video. But those names include Lady Death, Lady Bones, Black Lady, White Lady, and like I said, they're interchangeable. Santa Muerte looks a little different from her potentially previous incarnation as Mictecacihuatl. It's assumed that part of her design is partially influenced by José Guadalupe Posada's Catrina engraving, which is a female skeleton dressed in fancy clothing, which is often seen during Day of the Dead. The origin of her worship is unknown, but the first person to display a large public altar to Santa Muerte is a woman known as Doña Queta in the neighborhood of Tepito in Mexico City, a neighborhood known for its poverty and its high crime rate. Brujo Negro, a worshipper of Santa Muerte, a historian, and seemingly the authority of Santa Muerte online, writes that his grand aunt was a devotee of Lady Death as well, having a plastic effigy of Santa Muerte in her home in Mexico that she acquired in Los Angeles. This dates Lady Death's worship and mass manufacturing of Santa Muerte effigies much earlier than 2001, where Doña Queta had first displayed her public altar, and even outside of Mexico. R. Andrew Chestnut said in his book, Devoted to Death, Santa Muerte, the Skeleton Saint, that Santa Muerte is a syncretic blend of the European depiction of the Grim Reaper and Mictecacihuatl, a hypothesis that Brujo Negro also agrees with, though there's almost no real information corroborating this. There is also the possibility that she has West African influences, as Mexico did have the largest slave population in the New World at one point, and West African practices are major components of voodoo, candomblé, and santeria. All of these are syncretic blends of native and African spiritualities, as well as European and Catholic ones, and they all have death motifs. The truth is, there's no real consensus on her origin, but we do know that her popularity has grown in recent years. There's no one way to honor Santa Muerte. Her followers will either pray to her like she's a Catholic saint, asking for her guidance and protection. Others, like Brujo Negro, view her as a goddess and worship her. In both cases, offerings are often placed at altars for her. Various different colored statues and candles with Santa Muerte's visage will grant different things for the devotee, according to Brujo Negro. Black is for cursing your enemies, red is for love and sexual desire, and white is for cleansing and good luck. I myself have a white Santa Muerte candle, and I can say that she has brought me absolutely no luck. Well, it's probably perhaps because I don't really believe in this sort of stuff, and not really offered anything to her, so can't get something if you don't ask for it, right? There's no question that her veneration is considered brujeria, which is the Spanish word for witchcraft. In this sense, we're talking about, like, not quite the European type of witchcraft, like, but more like folk magic and shamanism. These shamanic practitioners are either called chamanes, curanderos, or brujos. Because of her ties to witchcraft, she is condemned by the Vatican. They warn against praying to her and say that she is a demon. Father Gary Thomas, a Vatican-trained exorcist for the Diocese of San Jose, said in an interview with Catholic News Agency, "I have had a number of people who have come to me as users of this practice and found themselves tied to a demon or demonic tribe. But what does venerating Santa Muerte do for her devotees? Well, according to Brujo Negro, there are rituals for prosperity, success, business, justice, court cases, protection from harm, protection from enemies, spiritual cleansing, healing, attraction of a lover, the return of a lost love, domination, and even curses against enemies. The reversal of curses, to name a few." Various Catholic news outlets and Chestnut report that her worship is closely tied to criminality. Altars dedicated to her are reportedly found in prison cells, and she is commonly worshipped by both inmates and prison guards. Other practitioners are members of various drug cartels. Santa Muerte's worship has also been tied to sex workers, though I would like it to be known that this channel is a sex work positive channel, and we believe that sex work is legitimate work. Brujo Negro asserts that the tie to criminals is an exaggeration. Remember that the faithful come in all shapes and sizes and from all walks of life. One example of those walks of life is the LGBT community. Her queer following seems to be mostly outside of Mexico. One of the more prominent queer practitioners is Stephen Bragg, a gay white man in New Orleans. The public shrine in his home draws mostly middle-class and college-aged Anglos, though there are Latinx practitioners amongst them. They pray to her reciting the Lord's Prayer, 3 Hail Marys, and an act of contrition, which honestly just sounds like I'm back at confession on a Saturday. Bragg left the Pentecostal faith because of his rejection that he felt as a gay man. He was introduced to Santa Muerte by a friend when he graduated college and has been a practitioner since. Another important figure in evangelizing Santa Muerte in Los Estados Unidos is Aurelie Vasquez, a transgender woman who is thought to be the person to bring Lady Death to New York City. She grew up in Mexico feeling alienated because of her gender identity. She later moved in with her aunt, where she learned of Santa Muerte and became a devotee. In the 1980s, she moved again to New York City, where she had other family members. She credits her faith in Santa Muerte for helping her, a transgender Mexican woman who spoke no English, with giving her the strength and courage to immigrate. She now has a public shrine to Lady Death in New York City. Even outside the sphere of Mexico and Doña Queta, Santa Muerte is venerated. Queer, New Age, and neo-pagan groups in Australia and the UK are said to worship her, and she has a particularly strong following amongst Bakla and gay men in Manila. Yashigaro Hasagawa, the leader of the devotees of Santa Muerte in the Philippines, told the blog Dead Maidens, "Santa Muerte does not discriminate. I feel discriminated in Filipino society. There's the idea of making fun of the gay here in the Philippines. There are rules in the Asian culture, so I have to be careful because of jobs, and I have to be respectful to be on the safe side. Also, when I'm out at night with the boys, I feel her black robe protecting us from dangers in the street." This isn't to say that her veneration by queer people in Mexico is not present. Santa Muertistas can be found holding statues of her during pride parades, with the saint clad in a rainbow robe. The Iglesia Católica Tradicionalista Mexicana Estadounidense, an unrecognized religious organization that broke away from the Catholic Church in Mexico, venerates Santa Muerte and performs religious same-sex marriages for its followers, invoking her name. Santa Muerte's veneration by queer people and their role as faith leaders is no surprise, and I have a video ready to be made about the topic, and it'll be first available to Patreon donors. Sorry for the paywall, but your girl's got to pay her bills. One thread that ties all of Santa Muertistas together, LGBT, criminals, and sex workers, is the alienation from civil society and the Catholic Church. Santa Muerte is said to have no judgment of her followers. All are free to worship her at her feet and be protected by her black robe. Death is the ultimate destiny of all living things, and you cannot take away life from death. All mortals must answer to death. This is well addressed in the prayers of the Novena de la Santísima Muerte, that express death's supreme influence over our destinies as mortal beings. In essence, this power is not limited to human life, but all life. All things must die, so death has great power over all life. Eventually we all die, giving all rungs of the societal ladder a form of equality in the end. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you really liked what you saw, please consider donating to my Ko-fi or my Patreon. It would really, really help me out. I'm trying to get into grad school. I'm trying to also live and eat and pay rent and pay bills. Why am I doing this to myself? I'd also like to thank a couple of my donors. I'd like to thank Abby. She has been helping me out since the podcast days. Thank you so much, Abby. I'd also like to thank Andres, who donated via coffee. And I'd like to thank the anonymous donor who donated, wishing me a happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you so much. You are wonderful. Until next time, take care and goodbye.